Hey, it's Bill Gross, the LAProbate expert.com. And today I have a really special guest, Michael Zwick, who is, well, I'll let him tell you what he does under Inherit More. So, Michael, welcome to our program.
Great to be here, Bill. Yes, so I am the inheritance investigator, and my company is called Inherit More. And a little bit of background about me: I started my professional life as an attorney, and back a little over 20 years ago, started an asset recovery business dealing with finding money in government treasuries and court proceedings, where we'd find the money and then go find the owner. So it was very much a "don't call us, we'll call you" type of business. About 2 years ago, one of our corporate clients, one of the largest not-for-profits in the country, called us and said, "Hey, we got a letter from this probate court in Ohio. Some woman died, left us her entire estate, and we know nothing about her, didn't do any estate planning with her. Can you find her assets for us?" Which is the reverse of our regular process. But we said, sure, we'll give it a try. And we found that she left a good amount behind, and that got us thinking, is this a common problem? So we started talking to probate attorneys and other professionals, and the answer was a resounding yes, that so many times someone dies and the heirs or whoever's benefiting under the will either doesn't know what the assets are, or knows but doesn't have the time or the energy or just the knowledge to go after it. So we started a new company, Inherit More, where we put to work our 2 decades of asset recovery and location to help people in that situation.
So let's talk about kind of what the most typical case looks like, right? I mean, I'm an agent, I work with probate regularly, where somebody knows grandma and grandpa passed, they know grandma and grandpa had a house, but they may not know they had bank accounts or securities, other things. What's a typical case look like for you to get involved with?
A typical case is usually going to be where the person who passed away was in their, usually 70s, 80s, maybe a little older, and it's the kids contacting us, and the kids who are in their, say, 40s or 50s, or maybe a little younger, maybe a little older, are in that kind of what we call the sandwich generation, that they are taking care of their elderly parents and also taking care of their own kids, and also having a full-time job or business. So it falls on them to handle all this, which is why they need us to deal with things. And also because a lot of times people don't talk about their finances with their loved ones. I'd like to say that most people are more inclined to talk about their sex lives on Facebook than they are to tell their closest loved ones about their finances and stuff like that. So that's where they turn to us. Sometimes, though, it's spouses as well. I was joking with my parents last week, and thank God they're still with us. They're in their 70s and 80s. That if something happened to my father right now, thank God that I'm here to take care of things. My mother has zero clue where my father has taken, because he's taking care of all the finances and the investing and stuff like that. My mother has zero clue where anything is.
Yeah, and I know for me, for example, I handle everything for me and my wife, and I have a spreadsheet. I share it with her, and correctly, she went to her eyes glazed over. I know if I wasn't here, it would be a mess. I mean, I know it. I try to keep a paper file with clues as to where things are. But so I imagine that in some cases, it's not that they don't know where the money is, but getting their hands on the statements or the account numbers or those. Is that really what it's about, or do they have no idea where anything is kept, or there's an occasional one missing account that you discover? What's it look like?
So sometimes it's a matter of them just having no idea where the assets are. Sometimes they just don't, like I said, don't have the time or the emotional strength to deal with it, because they're just, like I said, they have life going on, plus the grief of having lost a loved one. So they just can't get themselves to deal with it. And people don't realize what a time and soul sucking process probate can be, even for those who aren't dealing with their grief. When we started the company, I spoke with a friend of mine who's a rabbi of a large congregation in Detroit. And he told me, as someone who has counseled people through major life events, he says, when my father died, I was prepared for the emotional pain. He says it hurt like anything, but at least I knew what was coming. He says nothing prepared me for how stressful and time consuming probate is. He says, nobody tells you there's no probate school to go to. And that's kind of why we started this company. In addition to doing the service where we help the people, we also have created a resource guide for people if they want to just do it themselves, but need that step-by-step handbook to get them through.
Yeah, it's so true. I recently lost an aunt, and my sister was trustee of her estate and assured me they have a bank account that they should power of attorney on. I said, well, the power of attorney doesn't work because once the decedent passed in California law, the power of attorney extinguishes. Right. So you have a power of attorney over the person, not over their estate. No, she said, assured me it would work. She went to the bank. They assured her it would work. Of course, she walked in Wells Fargo. No, it doesn't work. And you need to, fill out this form and fill out this form. And so it's just soul sucking is a good phrase for that. So now, do you typically work with attorneys? Or are you working with pro per or pro se or people doing it on their own that need the help? How do you typically get involved into a case? So
it's both. First of all, I do want to clarify that although I am a licensed attorney, we do not act as counsel or attorney for them. We are a private investigation firm. That is our role. So sometimes we deal with attorneys, sometimes not. It just depends on person's comfort level. Most of the time, if it's a big enough estate that we're going to get involved in it, we tell people you're probably going to want an attorney to make sure that all your T's are crossed and I's are dotted. And there are some states, Texas being one of them, where someone cannot represent themselves in probate court. You cannot be petitioned for probate or be an executor in Texas in pro per.
So, it's interesting. In California, I tell people that certainly litigation, you should have an attorney. If there's an objector, for sure you should have an attorney. If you're the only heir and it's just one asset, that there's services that I think have an attorney at the top of the pyramid that basically will get most clients a better outcome at a cheaper price. But some of the things that trip them up are things like assets. If somebody's doing a case and doesn't know of assets of the parent, but suspects it might be, what's it cost to check? Is there a way to look and see, is it worth my time hiring you? Or is it the kind of thing where they have to go all in and do an exhaustive search? What's the process look like for somebody who's not an attorney to bring you in?
So, we sometimes there is that chicken and the egg thing of, they won't know what assets there are, or if there are, how much they're worth until they open probate, but then they could open probate and find out it's not worth that much. When we first talk to a client before we both agree that it's a good fit for them to hire us, we'll do an intake interview because we'll want to know some stuff about the decedent, including did the decedent work for a living, what they did, do they own a home, stuff like that. So we get a profile as to whether we think the person could have assets. Now we've all heard of cases where someone dies and the wealth they leave behind is much more or much less than anybody expected.
Yes.
You see those people who are living in mansions and driving the expensive sports cars, but it turns out that's what they spent all their money on. They got nothing. And then you have these people who worked in very, what seems to be lower paying blue collar jobs that squirreled away every penny and leave behind estates worth hundreds of thousands, if not more. So sometimes there is guesswork. Sometimes we and our clients will, open up an estate, find out there's nothing there, and we've all wasted our time and money. And other times where there's a very, very nice, pleasant surprise waiting there.
So if they're going to open a probate anyhow, what's the additional cost? Do they just interview with you and you make an assessment at that time, or is there a certain amount of money they have to spend up front in order to do a check of some sort, or what's the process look like specifically? So
we work on a contingency basis. If they're hiring us, as opposed to just buying our resource guide, we work on a contingency basis. So they don't owe us anything until we recover.
Got it.
So it's the cost of filing probate, which can be, it varies in state to state. In answer to your question in terms of whether people represent themselves, also part of it, and because we work nationally, I can tell you some states like California or Michigan, which is where I've lived most of my life until about a year ago. They have forms which make it a lot easier for someone in pro per to kind of fill in the blanks. Whereas there are other courts where you have to actually generate from scratch on a word processor word processing software, not actual word processor machine, to create those documents. So it becomes much harder because you don't have the templates to work off of.
Okay. So we end up working a lot with Pro. We reach out to them because they often get stuck in the mud, and then we try to help them either bring them into a probate service or an appropriate probate attorney if that's the reason why they're stuck. Is it worth having them just reach out if there's enough to open probate? They're thinking California, it's at least 167. In reality, almost any property is going to get you over that number in California. Is it worth at least reaching out? Or what's your resource guide cost? Maybe that's the...
So the resource guide we just launched a little while ago. The introductory price is $99, and it's on our website, inheritmore.com. It's right now it's labeled the Inheritors Club. It'll be the Inheritors Club guide. It's right there. There's a box on top of our website. So that's our introductory price for right now. I should also add that we do have a Facebook page that people can join, a group where people can come and ask questions if they have. So we'll do a consult. We might tell people, hey, it sounds like you got most of the stuff, you know where everything is, or that frankly, it's not a good use of our resources to do this with you, but you might want to buy our guide. So yeah.
If they want to double check or they think there might be something, they buy the guide and do some work on their own.
Right. And the meat and potatoes of our resource guide is finding assets and how to get them. So for example, we'll have a whole section on dealing with bank accounts, another section dealing with finding stocks and mutual funds and what to do to get them and stuff like that. So that's really the meat and potatoes of the resource guide, because that's been our bread and butter for 20 years.
Well, I missed that, so I need to look at that, and I'll get myself. So I'll know more next time we talk about your resource guide. So it sounds like, man, people can start for either $99 and or consult if they think there's something substantial to get you interested on a contingency basis. Is the contingency, do you share that number? Is that based on the estate and the case, or how do you handle that?
It's a fixed 20% fee.
Wow, it's reasonable.
Thank you. And like I said, we only get paid for the value we put in their pockets. And I should add that if someone buys the resource guide and then decides to hire us, we'll credit that purchase price towards our fee. So we'll deduct that out. So it's not like we're double dipping.
Wow, very nice. Okay, so what percentage of your business is in California?
Good question. I would say probably maybe 5% right now. Although I just today I talked to a woman, right in the LA area who wants to hire us for her son's father passed away and they don't know what he left behind. So that number will tick up a little bit.
Nice. Hopefully it's a big estate. It'll be a big number, a big percentage, and skew you to California.
Hopefully, yes.
Oh, great. Well, I as a broker, I only work in California, but I have a national network and team I've built out.
Right.
We're in Florida. We're in getting ready, I think, to open in Georgia. Looking at a couple other states to add into. I was in New York last year, trying to add our team there. So stay tuned. Hopefully, we can use you in some of these other states. Yeah,
and by the way, due to our work that we've been doing in the asset recovery business, which is we work nationally, we also have a great pool of resources. We have a whole slew of attorneys that we work with across the country, as well as notaries and whatever else. So, I'm here to help not only your listeners, but you yourself, Bill. If you ever need, call me up and say, hey, I need an attorney in Denver. Got a great one for you.
That's good to know. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So, okay, I think you really covered the main questions I had. And I think the answers then are you reach out, check out the Facebook group, and either engage with you if there's some assets we're aware of or feel strongly about, and you might consider it on a contingency basis, or if you want to do our own hunting, $99, get the guide and learn a little bit and find those resources on your own. Like I said, I work with estates that don't have attorneys yet, and we'll help them find the right attorney, which is a very important thing. I think too many find attorneys that they're not happy with after a while, and for good reason. Most attorneys that take these cases, I'll give you a statistic in California. When I download in LA County, 95% of the filings are by attorneys who've done one probate in the last 2 years or less.
Yeah.
you can imagine they don't know what they're doing. And they know the law, but they may not know the procedures and the administrative details that really are the key, not the law. I think about 80% of the time.
Because the other key to hiring a probate attorney is not just what they know, but also who they know. One of the most valuable lessons I learned on my very first day working in a law firm is my summer after first year law school. And the very first morning, my boss told me, okay, meet me at the office at 8 a.m. We're going to court. And I went with him, and he told me how the court clerks can be your best friend or your worst enemy. And so it's not just a matter of knowing someone who knows probate, but because, and we've seen this across the country, is even not only does the law and process vary from state to state, even within a state, it varies from county to county. And so therefore it helps to know the clerk, because they'll tell you in advance rather than, mail something in, then you got to wait 2 months to get it back till you be told you get this thing wrong. Be able to call someone and say, hey, how does this work?
It's so true. I know me, I used to go to court every day. I would sit in court sales. And in the course of a year and a half, 2 years, I'd seen about 500 court confirmation sales, more than any attorney, more than any judge did in that time period. But I also met the other one that's important is the sheriffs in LA County. And they would allow me to, on my iPad, track the case and the probate notes. I was following the case on my iPad. They don't allow some people, they don't want you texting or they don't want you playing on a computer game in the courtroom. That's not allowed, but they would allow me, which was great to take notes because it was critical to being productive while I was there. So you're right, knowing people. Of course, I buy them, holiday gifts, appropriate, coffee, cards and things like that. But be there every day and treat them like human beings, and they treat me the same way. So
exactly. I do want to add one thing to what you said before. If someone's interested and thinks that they might want our services, they can go onto our website. We have an application page where people can fill in information, including about the deceased, name, whether they were married, where they live, stuff like that. So this way we can already do we can kind of eyeball it and say, okay, we think this is a good fit, and then we can immediately send them an email that says, okay, let's set up a Zoom call so we can discuss this more in depth.
Fantastic. So, Michael, if someone wants to get more information about your company's service, or how would they get in touch with you?
So the best way is via our website, inheritmore.com. People can also reach me on LinkedIn. I spend probably too much time on there. But
I saw you, by the way, I think.
Yeah, I think because I reached out to you after getting into your podcast, and I was like, oh, I got to reach out to this guy. And but I'm on LinkedIn. I'm easy to find. I'm Michael Zwick, the Inheritance Investigator. It says right there under my name, so pretty easy to find. The other way to find me in there is my profile picture is bald guy with sunglasses.
I saw that. Where are the sunglasses today? Yeah, right.
Sunglasses are right here, but it's dark outside now. So yeah.
Okay. Well, very good. Well, Michael is fantastic. Inheritmore.com. We'll put the information in the show notes, the link to your LinkedIn as well. Of course, if you have questions, you can reach me. I work with states that need attorneys. I work with attorneys that specialize in probate as well. And on a daily basis, on the LAProbateexpert.com. I also have a probateweekly.com program every Thursday at 4 o'clock Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time, that we help people ask questions and find resources like Michael Zwick. So, Michael, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it, and look forward to working with you soon.
My pleasure to be here. Thanks.